The throne room was cold, as it always was. Queen Lyra stood before the gathered nobles, her hands folded in front of her silver robes. She had just finished solving a trade dispute between two powerful merchant families. The solution was fair. Both sides would benefit. Neither side thanked her. They never did. Lyra watched the nobles leave, their tall bodies moving with grace, their skin glowing with beautiful patterns of blue and gold light. That was the mark of true Velen. Beauty, the bioluminescence that danced across their skin like living art. When a Velen was happy, they glowed warm colors. When angry, sharp reds. When in love, soft purples that pulsed like heartbeats. Lyra's skin was plain silver. It did not glow. It did not pulse. It simply was. She had been born this way. The doctors had called it a rare condition. Her mother, the late Empress, had wept for days. Not because her daughter was sick. Lyra was perfectly healthy, but because her daughter would never be beautiful. In Velen society, that was a far worse fate. Your Majesty, a servant said, bowing low. The Emperor wishes to see you. Lyra walked through the long hallways of the palace. Servants moved out of her way quickly, but she noticed how they avoided looking at her face. She was used to it. They were not being cruel. They were simply uncomfortable. Looking at a Velen who could not glow was like looking at a person with no expression, no soul. It made others feel strange. The Emperor's chambers smelled of medicine and dying flowers. Her father lay in his bed, thin and weak. He had been dying for 3 years now. Somehow, he kept holding on. Lyra, he said, his voice like dry leaves. Come closer. She knelt beside his bed and took his hand. His skin flickered with faint light. He was too weak for proper bioluminescence now. But even dying, he glowed more than she ever had. I have made a decision, the Emperor said. About the succession, Lyra felt her chest tighten. She was the eldest child. By law, the throne should pass to her. But nothing about her life had ever followed the rules it was supposed to. You will be my heir, the Emperor continued. But there is a condition. Of course there was. You must marry before I die. The throne cannot pass to an unmarried queen. The noble council will not accept it. Lyra closed her eyes. Father, you know that no one will have me. I know. His hand squeezed hers weakly. I am sorry, my daughter. I have tried. I have offered lands, titles, wealth. But the noble families all refuse. They say their sons deserve better. Better. The word cut like a knife, even though Lyra had heard it 1,000 times before. Then what am I to do? She asked. The humans, the Emperor said. They have sent a diplomatic team. They want an alliance with us. Lyra frowned. She had read about humans. Small creatures from a small world. They had only discovered space travel 200 years ago, which was nothing in galactic terms. They were considered primitive, although surprisingly clever. Some Velen scholars called them the cockroaches of the galaxy, impossible to kill, and always spreading. What do humans have to do with my marriage? Lyra asked. Everything. The Emperor coughed, a terrible wet sound. Offer yourself to them. A royal marriage. They are too new to the galaxy to refuse a connection with our empire. They do not know our standards of beauty. They will not know that you are. That you are. Plain Lyra finished for him. Ugly, undesirable. I am sorry, the Emperor whispered again. Lyra stood slowly. She looked down at her father, this powerful man who had ruled 12 star systems, who had commanded fleets and crushed rebellions. He could not even find her a husband. No amount of power could make her beautiful. I will do it, she said. For the throne, for our people. There was one more thing, the Emperor said. Your brother, Prince Corin. Lyra's jaw tightened at the name. He has supporters in the noble council. If you do not marry in time, he will take the throne. And he has already made it clear that he will not let you live if that happens. You are a threat to him simply by existing. I understand, Lyra said. She left the Emperor's chambers and walked to the eastern balcony. From there, she could see the capital city spreading out below, millions of Velen people living their lives, working, loving, glowing. She'd spent her whole life serving them, solving their problems, fighting for their welfare, and none of them would ever look at her face without flinching. Now she would marry a primitive alien just to survive. Across the galaxy, on a ship traveling toward the Velen Empire, a human named Kong Taeho was reading diplomatic files. He was 32 years old, with black hair and calm eyes. He worked as a diplomatic attaché for the United Earth Coalition, basically a fancy title for someone who helped smooth over cultural misunderstandings before they became wars. Looking at the royal family again? A voice asked. Tae-Ho turned. Yoon Hana, his colleague and friend, was leaning against the doorway with a cup of coffee in her hand. The Velens are fascinating, Taeho said. Their entire social structure is based on bioluminescence. Those who glow brightest are considered the most beautiful, the most worthy of respect. Sounds shallow, Hana said. Every species has its shallow parts. Humans judge each other by wealth, by skin color, by height. At least the Velans are honest about their standards. Hana walked over and looked at his screen. Is that the queen? The one they say is ugly? Taeho studied the image. Queen Lyra of the third moon. In the picture, she stood in some kind of formal ceremony, her silver skin smooth and calm. She had large violet eyes and delicate features. Her expression was controlled, showing nothing. I don't understand, Taeho said quietly. What? Why they think she is ugly? She looks elegant, graceful, like a statue made of moonlight. Ah, Hana laughed. Careful, Taeho. You're starting to sound romantic. I'm being objective, he said, but he did not look away from the image. There was something in Lyra's eyes that caught his attention, something heavy and sad and strong all at once. He had seen that look before in refugees who had lost everything, in soldiers who had seen too much, in people who had learned to survive by building walls around their hearts. He started reading about her accomplishments. There were many. Trade agreements, peace negotiations, agricultural reforms. She had personally designed a water distribution system that saved 3 planets from drought. The reports praised her intelligence, her efficiency, her tireless work. None of the reports mentioned her beauty or her lack of it. She's done more for her empire than any of her ancestors, Taeho said. And yet they call her the unwanted queen, Hana replied. Galaxy's a cruel place. The ship flew on through the stars, carrying them toward the Velen Empire. Toward a queen who had been rejected by her own people. Toward a marriage proposal that was meant as an insult. Toward the beginning of something no one could have predicted. The Velen diplomats arrived at the human ship with cold smiles and colder words. Admiral Baek Suhayan received them in the main conference room. He was an old soldier, gray-haired and patient, with the kind of face that had seen too many negotiations go wrong. Taeho stood behind him, watching everything. We bring a generous offer from the Velen Empire, the lead diplomat said. His skin pulsed with confident blue light. A marriage alliance between our peoples. Suhayan raised an eyebrow. A marriage? Between whom? Queen Lyra of the third moon, eldest heir to the Velen throne, offers her hand to any suitable human male. The diplomat paused and his light flickered with something like amusement. We understand that your species may not be familiar with such honors, but this is a great opportunity for your people, a chance to connect with a true galactic power. Taeho noticed the way the other Velen diplomats exchanged looks. There was something mocking in their posture, something cruel in the way they held themselves. They were not offering a gift. They were disposing of trash. After the Velens left, Suhayan sat down heavily. It's a trap, he said. Has to be. Maybe, Taeho replied. But what kind of trap? Hana pulled up her research. The queen is considered unmarriageable by Velen standards. If she doesn't marry before the emperor dies, the throne goes to her brother, Prince Karin. He has a reputation for being ambitious and ruthless. So they're offering us their reject, Suhayan said. Hoping we're too stupid to notice, or too desperate, Hana added. They think we'll accept any royal connection because we're new to the galaxy. Suhayan shook his head. We should refuse. This is clearly meant to insult us. Taiho spoke quietly. What if we accept? Both of them turned to look at him. Think about it, Taiho continued. If we refuse, we insult them back, and we gain nothing. But if we accept, we get a royal marriage alliance with the Velen Empire. That's real political power. That's a seat at the galactic table. With a queen nobody wants, Suhayan said. Nobody Velen wants, Taiho corrected. But I've read her records. She's brilliant. She's done more actual work for her empire than any of the glowing nobles who mock her. And besides, he paused, their standards aren't ours. I looked at her image. She's not ugly, not two human eyes. Hana stared at him. Taiho, are you volunteering? He met her gaze steadily. Someone has to. And I think I can do this. I think I can make this work. The next 3 days were filled with negotiations. The Velens were surprised that the humans had accepted so quickly. They were even more surprised when they learned that the chosen groom was not some elderly politician looking for glory, but a young diplomat with no noble blood at all. This is acceptable, the Velen diplomats said, though their lights flickered with confusion. The wedding will take place in 10 days. Queen Lyra received the news in her private chambers. Her advisor, an old Velen woman named Mora, stood nearby. Human, Lyra said flatly. They found me a human. He is a diplomat, Mora said. Young, apparently, healthy, not unpleasant to look at, by their standards. By their standards. Lyra laughed, but there was no humor in it. And what are their standards? Do they even have any? They're barely civilized. Perhaps that is the advantage, Mora said gently. They do not know our ways. They cannot be disappointed by what you lack. The words were meant kindly, but they still hurt. Lyra turned away and looked out the window. Somewhere out there, a small human was traveling toward her. A stranger who had agreed to bind his life to hers forever without ever meeting her. Why? What did he want? What was he planning? She would find out soon enough. The first meeting took place in the Hall of Silver Moons. It was a formal space. Designed to intimidate visitors with its high ceilings and glowing pillars, Lyra stood at one end, dressed in full royal attire, her face carefully blank. The doors opened, and the human walked in. He was shorter than she expected. Velens were tall, and she had somehow imagined all species were similar. But this man Kong Taho, she reminded herself, was compact and solid, with dark hair and steady eyes. He walked without fear, without hesitation, his gaze moving around the room before settling on her. And then he did. Something strange. He stopped several meters away and bowed. Not a Velen bow, with the complex hand gestures and light displays. A human bow, simple, deep, respectful. When he straightened, he spoke in Velen. His accent was terrible, but the words were correct. Your Majesty, I am honored to stand before you. Thank you for offering me this chance. Lyra blinked. He had learned her language. Badly? Yes, but he had tried. No one had ever tried for her before. You may speak your own language, she said in the human tongue. She had studied it for this meeting. I understand it well enough. Then I will, Taiho said. And I want to start with honesty. I know why this marriage was offered. I know that your people consider you undesirable. I know they expect you to fail. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You are very direct. I am human. We waste time on many things, but rarely on lies. Took a step closer. I also know that you solved the Merchant Guild dispute last month, and the water crisis on the outer moons, and the trade war between the northern and southern provinces. I have read every record I could find about you. Why? Lyra demanded. Because I wanted to understand who I was marrying. Taiho met her gaze without flinching. Your people judge you by your appearance. Mine judge by actions. And by your actions, you are the most capable ruler your empire has seen in generations. Silence filled the hall. You're trying to flatter me, Lyra said. I'm trying to tell you the truth. Taiho smiled slightly. Flattery would sound much nicer. Despite herself, Lyra felt something shift in her chest. Not trust, she was too careful for that, but curiosity. This strange little creature was not what she had expected. "Why did you accept this marriage?" she asked. "What do you want from me?" "An alliance," he said. "For my people, a chance to prove that humans deserve a place in the galaxy." And he paused. "I watched recordings of your speeches. The way you handle problems, the way you stay calm when people insult you. I thought to myself, that is someone worth knowing, someone worth standing beside." "You are naive," Lyra said. "Probably," Tejo agreed. "But I'm also stubborn. My people are famous for it." The wedding was held 7 days later. It was a small ceremony by Velan standards. Most noble families refused to attend, but the humans came. Admiral Suhayan Hana, a small delegation of Earth, officials who understood what this moment meant. When Tejo took Lyra's hand and spoke the binding vows, when she looked into his eyes, she saw no disgust, no regret, no hidden contempt. She saw only calm determination, and something that might have been hope. Across the room, Prince Corrin watched with narrowed eyes. His skin flickered with angry red light, though he tried to hide it. The human had ruined everything. The plain queen now had a husband. She would inherit the throne, unless something unfortunate happened to her first. Corrin smiled and began to plan. Marriage, Lyra discovered, was strange when you shared it with a human. The first morning after the wedding, she woke to find Tejo already awake. He was in the small kitchen attached to their quarters, doing something with hot water and dried leaves. "What are you making?" she asked from the doorway. "Tea," he said. "It's a human drink. I thought you might like to try it." Lyra stared at him. "You are preparing food for me?" "Yes." "Do you know what that means among my people?" Tejo paused. Hana mentioned something about it. "Food preparation implies servitude, right? That the preparer is lower in status than the one being served." "Correct." Lyra folded her arms. "So why are you doing it?" "Because among my people, it means something different." He poured the tea into 2 cups and carried one to her. "It means care, affection. When my mother was alive, she made tea for my father every morning. It was her way of saying she loved him." Lyra took the cup slowly. The liquid inside was golden brown, steaming gently. "That is a very different meaning. Most things are different between our species." Tejo sat down across from her. "I thought maybe we could learn each other's meanings, build something new together." She sipped the tea. It was bitter and earthy, not unpleasant. "You are very optimistic for someone trapped in a political marriage. I prefer to think of it as a partnership." They smiled. "We both gain something. Your throne is secured. My people get an alliance. And maybe, if we're lucky, we might even become friends." When was the last time Lyra had a friend? She could not remember. The days passed. Lyra began to notice things about her human husband. He asked her opinion constantly. What did she think about the new trade proposal? How would she handle the mining dispute? Did she agree with the ambassador's suggestion? At first, she thought he was testing her, looking for weaknesses. But slowly, she realized the truth. He actually valued her thoughts. He said thank you for everything. When servants brought food, he thanked them. When guards opened doors, he thanked them. When Lyra passed him a document, he thanked her. It was strange and excessive, and somehow warm. He touched her without fear. Not romantically, they were still too distant for that, but casually. A hand on her shoulder when he passed by. A brief touch on her arm when making a point. 2 Velans. Such touches were intimate, reserved for close family or lovers. But Tejo seemed to do it without thinking, as natural as breathing. Does my skin bother you? Lyra asked one evening. They were sitting in the garden, watching the 3 moons rise. Tejo looked up from his reading pad. What do you mean? It does not glow. It never has. Lyra kept her voice carefully neutral. Among my people, that makes me difficult to look at. Like a person without a face. I wondered if you felt the same. Tejo was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. Her silver skin against his brown skin. Do you know what I see when I look at you? He asked, "Tell me." "I see someone who works harder than anyone around her. I see someone who solves problems that others cannot even understand. I see someone who has been told her whole life that she is worthless and yet never stopped caring for her people." He squeezed her hand gently. "Your skin doesn't glow, so what? My skin doesn't glow either, but that doesn't make either of us less valuable." Lyra felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she had built years ago, brick by brick, began to tremble. She pulled her hand away. "You should not say such things." "Why not?" "They're true, because I might start to believe them." The crisis came 3 weeks later. A mining colony on the outer edges of the Empire sent a desperate message. Their environmental systems were failing. Toxic gases were leaking into their air supply. They had maybe 30 days before the entire colony became unlivable. Lyra worked through the night, analyzing data, designing solutions. By morning, she had a plan. It would require massive resources, new filtration systems, emergency supplies, evacuation ships for the children and elderly. But the resources she needed were controlled by Prince Corin. "Request denied," Corin said when she contacted him. His face on the screen was cold, his skin pulsing with satisfied blue light. "Those resources are allocated for other purposes." What purposes could be more important than saving 20,000 lives? Military expansion, defense projects, things that actually matter to the Empire. Lyra kept her voice steady, but inside she was burning. "Brother, those people will die." "Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you married an animal." Corin leaned forward. "I'll tell you what, sister. Publicly renounce your claim to the throne. Step aside and let me rule. Do that, and I will release the resources." The connection ended. Lyra sat alone in her office, staring at the blank screen. 20,000 lives. Children who would never grow up. Workers who had spent their lives serving the Empire. And Corin was willing to let them all die just to hurt her. She would have to give up the throne. There was no other choice. The door opened, and Tejo walked in. He looked tired. He had been working through the night too, she realized. "I heard about the mining colony," he said, "and about Corin's demand. Then you understand what I must do." "No," Tejo shook his head. "I don't. I cannot let those people die. Neither can I." He pulled out his communication device, "Which is why I spent the night talking to Earth. To our corporations, our governments, our emergency relief organizations. I called in every favor I had." Lyra stared at him. "What?" "The United Earth Coalition is sending help. Filtration systems, medical supplies, evacuation ships, everything the colony needs." Tejo smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "Consider it a wedding gift from humanity to the Velen Empire." Lyra could not speak. She could not move. "You." She finally managed. "You did this without asking me. I knew you would try to sacrifice yourself. I saw it in your face when you came back from talking to Corin. I married a queen who would give up her crown for miners she's never met. A queen who values life more than power. That kind of person is worth protecting." "Why?" The word came out raw, broken. "Why do you care so much?" "Because you deserve someone who cares." He reached out and gently touched her cheek, that strange human gesture of intimacy. "Because kindness should not be punished. Because you have spent your whole life giving, and no one has ever given anything back to you." Lyra felt the wall inside her finally crumble. Tears, actual tears, something she had not allowed herself in years, began to fall. Tejo held her while she cried. He did not say anything else. He just held her, steady and warm, like an anchor in a storm. When she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, she looked at him with something new in her gaze. "Thank you," she said. "For seeing me?" "Always," he replied. Across the palace, in his private chambers, Prince Corin received the news about the human relief ships. His skin flushed dark red with rage. The human had made a fool of him. The plain queen and her animal husband had won this round. But politics was too slow now. Too uncertain. It was time for more direct. Methus Corinne summoned his most trusted assassin and began to plan. Diplomatic banquet was supposed to be a celebration. Representatives from 12 star systems had gathered in the great hall of the Velen Palace. It was the first major event since the Human-Velen marriage alliance, and everyone wanted to see the strange couple for themselves. The Plain Queen and her alien husband, Te-Ho, stood beside Lyra, wearing formal human attire. He had learned to handle Velen's social events, smile politely, bow correctly, and ignore the whispers that followed him everywhere. "The human looks like a child next to her," someone murmured. "I heard he does not even glow. No wonder they paired him with the defective queen." Te-Ho let the comments wash over him. He had heard worse during his training. Words were just words. What he did not expect was the poison. It happened during the third course. Hana was sitting nearby, as she always did at these events, close enough to help Te-Ho with cultural confusion. When the soup arrived, she frowned slightly. "Something smells off," she muttered, leaning toward Te-Ho's bowl. That was when she noticed the slight discoloration, the tiny bubbles that should not have been there. "Don't," she shouted. But Te-Ho had already lifted the spoon to his lips. Hana threw herself forward, knocking the bowl from his hands. The soup splashed across the tableland where it touched the polished wood. The surface began to bubble and melt. Screams filled the hall. Guards rushed forward. Te-Ho stared at the dissolving table, understanding slowly dawning on his face. Someone had tried to kill him. Hana lay on the ground, clutching her arm. Some of the soup had splashed on her skin when she knocked the bowl away. The poison was burning through her flesh. "Medic," Te-Ho shouted, dropping to his knees beside her. "Get a medic now." The next hours were chaos. Hana was rushed to the medical wing. The palace was locked down. Every servant, every guard, every noble present was questioned. But Te-Ho knew who was responsible. They all knew the problem was proving it. Velen law was complex and ancient. You could not simply accuse a royal prince of attempted murder without evidence. And Corin had been careful. The poison had passed through dozens of hands before reaching Te-Ho's bowl. No direct connection could be found. "There is one option," Lyra said. They were in the medical wing, sitting beside Hana's bed. The human woman was stable now, but her arm was badly damaged. She would need months of treatment to recover. "What option?" Te-Ho asked. His voice was flat, controlled. But Lyra could see the rage burning behind his eyes. "Formal accusation before the noble council. If I present enough circumstantial evidence, I can demand a trial by combat." Lyra's hands tightened in her lap. "But I have no champion. No noble would fight for me, and I cannot fight myself. Tradition forbids the accuser from being their own champion." Te-Ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'll do it." Lyra turned to stare at him. "What?" "I'll be your champion. I'll fight." "Te-Ho, you cannot." Velen warriors train from childhood. They are faster, stronger, and larger than humans. Corin's champion will be a decorated killer. You would not last 5 minutes. Maybe not. Te-Ho looked at Hana's sleeping form. But someone has to stand. Someone has to say that this is not acceptable. If no one else will do it, then I will. You will die. Maybe. He met Lyra's eyes. But I won't hide. I won't let your brother think he can hurt the people I care about without consequence. Lyra wanted to argue. She wanted to forbid him. But she saw the determination in his face, that stubborn human fire that never seemed to go out. And she knew she could not stop him. "Then I will be there," she said quietly. "Whatever happens, I will be there." The trial took place in the Arena of Judgment, a massive stone amphitheater that had stood for 10,000 years. Every noble family sent representatives. The emperor, too weak to attend, watched through a video connection from his deathbed. Prince Corin sat in the accused box, his skin carefully neutral. Beside him stood his champion, a Velen warrior named Commander Varn. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with muscles that rippled beneath his glowing skin. He had killed over 50 opponents in combat. Te-Ho entered the arena alone. He wore simple clothing, no armor, no protection. In his hands, He carried a single human weapon, a metal rod, about a meter long. The Velans in the audience laughed. "This is your champion?" Corin called out, not bothering to hide his amusement. "A tiny animal with a stick?" Tejo did not respond. He simply walked to the center of the arena and waited. Lyra stood in the royal box, her heart pounding. She had never been so afraid in her life. Not when her mother died. Not when the nobles mocked her. Not when Corin threatened her throne. This was different. This was Tejo walking calmly toward his death because of her. The signal was given. The fight began. Commander Varn moved like lightning. In 3 steps, he crossed the arena and swung his blade in a killing arc. Tejo barely managed to dodge, rolling desperately to the side. The blade cut a groove in the stone floor. Again. Varn attacked relentlessly, his movements precise and brutal. Tejo blocked what he could, dodged what he could, but every exchange left him more battered. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. His arm hung at an awkward angle, probably dislocated. After 10 minutes, Tejo could barely stand. Varn stood over him, not even breathing hard. "Yield," Varn said. "End this foolishness." "No," Tejo whispered. Varn hit him again. Tejo crashed to the ground, coughing blood. The crowd watched in silence. This was not entertainment anymore. This was something else. Something uncomfortable. Yield, Varn repeated. No. Another blow. Tejo's ribs cracked. He lay face down on the stone, shaking, broken. Any sane person would have given up long ago. But Tejo was not sane. He was human. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself back to his feet. The audience gasped. Even Varn took a step back, confused. This should not be possible. No creature should be able to stand after such punishment. Varn Astado smiled through bloody teeth. Stubborn. The fight continued. Hour after hour. Varn beat Tejo down again and again and again and again. Tejo rose. His body was ruined, broken bones, torn muscles, blood everywhere, but he would not stop. By the 6th hour, something changed in the crowd. The mockery had faded. People were leaning forward, watching with strange expressions. Even the nobles who hated humans were silent. By the 9th hour, Varn was struggling. Not physically, he was barely injured, but mentally, emotionally, he was falling apart. Every time he knocked Tejo down, he expected it to be the last. And every time Tejo rose, something cracked inside Varn's confidence. By the 12th hour, Varn made a mistake. He swung too wide, exhaustion finally catching up to him. Tejo, moving on pure instinct, pure-willed under the blade and drove his metal rod into Varn's knee. The giant warrior screamed and fell. Tejo stood over him, barely conscious, swaying on his feet. He raised the rod for a final blow. "Yield," he said. His voice was a ragged whisper. "Please. I don't want to kill you." Varn stared up at this broken, bloody creature who refused to die, and something in him gave way. "Yield," he said. Silence, then chaos. The arena exploded with noise, confusion, disbelief, something that might have been admiration. Lyra did not hear any of it. She was already running, pushing through the crowds, desperate to reach the arena floor. Tejo saw her coming. He smiled, that same calm smile he always wore. Then he collapsed. Lyra caught him before he hit the ground. She held him against her chest, not caring about the blood, not caring about the crowds watching. "You impossible creature," she whispered. "You foolish, stubborn, wonderful human." Tejo's eyes fluttered open. "Did we win?" "Yes." Tears ran down her silver cheeks. "We won. Good." He reached up weakly and touched her face. Then, it was worth it. He passed out in her arms. And for the first time in her life, Lyra held someone she was not willing to let go. Tejo woke to the sound of someone crying. He was in a medical bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with unfamiliar sounds. His body felt like one giant bruise. When he tried to move his arm, pain shot through him so sharply that he gasped. "Don't move," a voice said. You'll tear the healing patches. He turned his head slowly, carefully saw Lyra sitting beside his bed. Her eyes were red. Her silver skin was dull with exhaustion. She had been crying, he realized. For him? How long? He managed to ask. 3 days? She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed to be caught showing emotion. The doctors said you should be dead. Multiple broken ribs, internal bleeding, a fractured skull. They had never seen anyone survive such injuries. Humans are hard to kill. He tried to smile, but it came out as a wince. Ask anyone in the galaxy. Lyra did not smile back. Instead, she leaned forward and took his hand gently, as if he might break at any moment. Why did you do it? She asked. You knew you would lose. You knew he would hurt you. Why did you keep getting up? Taeho thought about the question. It deserved an honest answer. Because you needed someone to stand for you, he said. And because I wanted Corin to understand something. You can hurt us. You can break us. But you cannot make us give up. Not on the things that matter. And I matter? Lyra's voice was small. To you. More than I expected, Taeho admitted. More than I can explain. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned down and pressed her forehead against his in gesture of deep affection. Reserved for family and loved ones. You matter to me too, she whispered. Impossible human. The recovery was slow. Taeho spent weeks in the medical wing, gradually healing. Lyra visited every day, ignoring the scandalized whispers of the court. Queens did not tend to consorts. Queens did not sit beside beds, reading reports aloud so their injured husbands could stay informed. Lyra did not care what queens were supposed to do. Hana recovered too, though her arm would never be quite the same. She visited Taeho often, bringing news from the human delegation and complaining about Velen food. You're famous now, you know, she told him one afternoon. Back on Earth, they're calling you the unbreakable human. There are songs about you. Very embarrassing songs. Taeho groaned. Please tell me you're joking. I wish I was. Hana grinned. The children's version is particularly terrible. It rhymes stubborn with mountain, but the peace did not last. On the 43rd day of Taeho's recovery, Prince Corin made his move. He gathered his loyalist forces, soldiers and nobles, who had always supported him, and launched an attack on the palace. Lyra received the news at Taeho's bedside. A servant rushed in, pale with fear. Your Majesty, the prince has surrounded the palace with his troops. He demands your surrender. He says if you do not abdicate within 1 hour, he will order an assault. Lyra stood slowly. Her face was calm, but Taeho could see the storm behind her eyes. How many forces does he have? 3,000 soldiers. 50 combat vehicles. 2 battleships in orbit. Taeho pushed himself up in bed, ignoring the pain. How many do we have? Less than 500 palace guards? Servant swallowed. And the human delegation. But they are civilians. They cannot fight. Lyra walked to the window and looked out. In the distance, she could see Corin's troops gathering, their weapons gleaming in the light of the 3 moons. Taeho watched her. He knew what she was thinking. Flee or fight? Survival or honor? She could escape to human space. He could take her there, protect her, give her a quiet life far from all of this. But that would mean abandoning her people. Abandoning everything she had worked for. Lyra, he said quietly. She turned to look at him. Whatever you decide, he continued, I'm with you. If you want to run, I'll run with you. If you want to fight, I'll fight beside you. He paused. I married a queen. Whoever you choose to be after tonight, I married her too. Lyra studied his face for a long moment. This broken, stubborn human who had stood against a warrior for 12 hours, who had nearly died for her. Who loved her, she could see it now, written clearly in his eyes. She made her choice. I will not run, she said. This is my empire, my people, my home. I will not abandon them to my brother's cruelty. Then what will you do? Lyra smiled a real smile, fierce and bright. Something I should have done years ago. I will ask my people for help. She walked out of the medical wing and into the palace communication center. Within minutes, Her face appeared on every screen in the capital city. "Citizens of the Velen Empire," she said. "I am Queen Lyra of the Third Moon. You know me. You have always known me. The plain queen. The silent queen. The one who could never glow." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Tonight my brother tries to take the throne by force. He has soldiers and ships and weapons. I have almost nothing." Her voice stayed steady. "But I have something he does not. I have spent my life serving you. Not for glory, not for power, because it was right. I have solved your disputes. I have protected your homes. I have worked every day to make your lives better." In homes across the city, people stopped what they were doing and listened. "I am asking for your help now. Not as a queen commanding her subjects, but as a woman who has given everything for this empire. Stand with me tonight, and I promise you I will never stop fighting for you." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nothing happened. Corrin's troops remained in position. The palace guards prepared for a hopeless battle. Then the gates of the city opened. They came in waves. Miners from the outer colonies, farmers from the agricultural worlds, merchants and teachers and engineers, thousands of ordinary Velen citizens, carrying whatever weapons they could find, tools, hunting rifles, kitchen knives. They came because they remembered. The queen who had saved their water supply. The queen who had solved their disputes fairly. The queen who had never looked down on them, never treated them as lesser. Even when the nobles spat on her name by dawn, Corrin's forces were surrounded. Not by soldiers, by citizens. Tens of thousands of them, filling the streets, blocking every escape route. Corrin's troops began to surrender. Some joined the citizens openly, throwing down their weapons. The battleships in orbit powered down, captains unwilling to fire on their own people. Prince Corrin was found hiding in his quarters. He was dragged before the noble council, stripped of his titles, and exiled to a dead moon on the edge of the empire. He would spend the rest of his life there, alone, watching stars he would never reach. The coronation was held 1 month later. Lyra stood before the throne, dressed in silver and white. For the first time, the great hall was filled not just with nobles, but with common citizens, miners, farmers, workers from every corner of the empire. And beside the throne, not behind it, stood Kong Teho, still healing, still stubborn, still smiling that calm, steady smile. The crown was placed on Lyra's head. She was now empress. She turned to face her people, Law, her people, high and low, and spoke. "I was told my whole life that I was not enough, too plain, too quiet, too forgettable. I believed it for many years. Then a human from a small blue world truly saw me, and I learned something important." She looked at Teho. He nodded. "Worth is not in what others perceive. It is in what we choose to become. It is in the hands we extend to others. It is in the walls we tear down." She smiled. "Some species conquer with strength. Humans conquer differently. They refuse to stop believing in their causes, in their people, in those they love. They are relentless in hope. And that is why they are here tonight. Not as servants or allies. As partners. As equals. As family." The crowd roared. Velens and humans cheered together, their voices shaking the ancient walls.